It's the worldwide. We're back again. Holy Ghost is present. We're back again. We're gonna talk about James back again.
What is up, Bible Baddies? Season 2 coming at you live from the Pod Shack.
Woo!
Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm Dominique.
And I'm Audra.
Wait, yeah.
Introduce yourself. Who do you want to be?
I want to be an angel.
One day.
One day in the kingdom. So what's been up, Audra?
How long have we been off this? Like a month and a half?
Probably, yeah, something like that.
Good times.
Been a minute.
Yeah.
I missed this, though.
Yeah.
I was so excited on the airplane today. I was like reading the Bible, reading commentary again. I was like, man, this is dope.
We're back, baby.
We're back.
Dom's been jet setting everywhere.
I have. I went to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
That was an amazing trip. Lots of fun. Lots of cool animals. It was honestly a slice of paradise, like how I'd envision heaven, with the toucans and the parrots.
toucans.
And then scuba diving, all the turtles under the water and fish. I was like, wow, God's creation's so cool.
Yeah.
Truly, whenever I travel and I do stuff like that, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
It's so miraculous, and there's such a, like, even under the ocean, it's so quiet and you're just breathing underwater.
I'm so scared of the ocean.
Audra hates it.
I
She
hate
thinks
the
it's
photos
creepy.
that she sends. I'm like, get out of there. It's a trap.
She thinks it's creepy I breathe underwater.
And all the things.
I love it.
No.
It's just so cool. You'll have to try it.
In heaven. I will.
In heaven.
Where I can't die.
We'll be like, God, can you turn her into a fish real quick?
Give me some gills.
Give us some grills. And then I just got back from San Diego last week with my friends in a baby shower celebrating mamas to be. Oh, and if you didn't listen to my mom's episode, give it a listen. Bring some tissues. Might be a tearjerker.
Facts.
Everyone who reached out was like, oh, I
I'm
shouldn't
sobbing.
be crying here. This is not the time. And I was like, sorry.
It's actually probably our like most heart-wrenching one, I think. Like heartfelt.
So?
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and my mom went deep.
Yeah. And just like, I'm such a sap for love, you know?
Mhm.
And like, you can just feel the love between the two of y'all. And it's so
Aw.
sweet. Yeah. I was like, I'm just trying to get home. I got blindsided by these emotions. I don't understand.
Aw.
Yeah. It's very sweet. Great Mother's Day episode. Great idea.
Yay. What have you been up to? You've been up to a lot.
I also was out of town last weekend camping. That was sick. I went with a friend who's a very new friend, which I don't know. It was just random, you know,
Yeah.
but like a great random, very spontaneous. But we went to Palo Duro Canyon and literally just so many, in my opinion, in my thinking, like God moments.
Yeah.
I had to get up at 4 a.m. on Friday morning.
4
Yes.
a.m.?
Yes.
On your trip?
To leave.
Oh,
4
to get
a.m.
there?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, and I didn't go to sleep until like 11 p.m. So this
Oh.
was like such a spontaneous trip. Like she texted me about it like maybe 10 days before it happened.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even know if I could go because I had to request off work. Didn't find out I could actually go on it until the Tuesday before we left.
Mhm.
So I had 2 days and my schedule's just always busy. So like
Yeah.
I had no free time to go grocery shopping or pack or whatever. So yeah, so I went to bed at like 11:30 the night before, woke up at 4 a.m. We had to drive 6 hours. Like I'm in a car with a girl who I've literally never hung out with. Like we went to coffee once.
Uh-huh.
But outside of that, like we're in a car together for 6 hours. Like our coffee date was an hour, maybe.
What
Like
did you guys talk about?
everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so sick. Like
That's
even at
cool.
one point, she turned to me and she was like, "I was really nervous for this
Yeah.
car ride." And I was like, "Kind of same." She's like, "But we haven't we didn't even listen to music on the way
Aw.
out there. We just gabbed." And it
That's
was
the best.
yeah. And then so whenever we got there, there's like the main trail that everybody goes there for.
Uh-huh.
The lighthouse is what it's called.
Okay.
We were like, let's save that for Saturday. We have all day here. But instead, we ended up doing like 2 smaller ones. And we were like, well, we still have time. Like, it's still daylight. Let's just do it. And so it's a 6-mile hike. And so we do that. And like, we chilled at the top and like whatever. Yeah. And so then luckily we did it that night because Saturday Saturday, it stormed all day and all the trails were closed. So we just like hung out in the tent and talked some more, you know, but like at least we got to do, I would have been so upset if we would have missed that trail. Like that's the only reason why we came, you know? Yeah. But yeah, and then Friday night, we got to see the Northern Lights. That's like, what a treat. Cool. It was so crazy.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I was just like, wow, like, just the way God kind of lined it up that we didn't miss the trail. We saw the Northern Lights. Saturday, we still got to go horseback riding. Like, it was just a lot of fun, like, in those ways. And just truly being still and slow and, like, seeing what God's doing. Like, just in such a simple trip, you know? Yeah. So cool.
God showing off.
Yeah, showing off.
Yeah,
it's like, well, God, you didn't have to go that big,
right,
you know?
Right. Like the Northern Lights in Texas.
Yeah.
That's always been on my bucket list to like go to places like Alaska and Iceland and different places to see it. Right. And he's like, I'm gonna bring it to you this weekend.
Here
Surprise.
Wrapped it tight with a little bow.
Thanks for being obedient.
Yeah. I was like, what are you even doing, sir?
You know what I love that I realized when I was in Costa Rica is that it sounds bad, but sometimes when you're on vacation, not that you forget about God, but you pray a little less. Or maybe I do. I'm guilty of it.
You're just busy.
You're just busy. Yeah. You're distracted. It's not the forefront of your brain. But yet you have those God moments. It's like he's always around. He's never taking time off from you. He's like, hello, Dom. I'm still here. And it's crazy because in the stories of just the people I met, like one girl I went scuba diving with had infertility issues. So I was like talking to her about Haley's story and saying, hey, you should totally listen to this one episode. You don't have to listen to others. Just listen to this one. She's an inspiration. Like if you need to reach out, let's, exchange numbers, whatever. And then another woman who lost her son. And we had these, it was just like, hey, small conversations. And the next thing you know, they're telling you something so deep.
Right.
And the next thing you know, I'm saying, hey, I don't know if you're Christian or not. Isaiah 57:10 helps me with grief. Or, hey, this helps me. And what's crazy is the woman who lost her son is from Texas. And so it's just little God moments where I'm meeting this stranger in Costa Rica, and yet we're from the same state.
Yeah.
What are the chances?
Right.
And we're having conversations about God while we're both on vacation. So it's just so cool to see God always moving and working, and it's just wild.
Yeah, I love that.
Not even we can take a vacation from it.
Yeah, he's like, boom.
He's like, no, ma'am, you have some preaching to do.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. Well, for season 2, we're doing James.
James.
Should we do a backstory on James? Mr. James?
Sure, go for it.
Me? I was saying you.
Me? I just, I only know the basics.
He's just Jesus' half-brother.
Yeah, he wasn't a follower of Jesus, though, while Jesus was Jesus in the flesh. Yeah, which I think is, crazy. He didn't get saved until after Jesus was resurrected. I think that's, wow.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
And it's your brother?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes if your sister went to you, though, and was like, hey, I'm the Messiah, you'd be like, oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was actually just thinking. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever.
All right. Stop joking with me. Right. And you just, go back to your room.
Well, and if everybody, thinks they're weird, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to, follow the law, that is, man-made. You got this brother over here causing havoc, being like,
yeah,
I'm going to heal on a Sunday. It's like, bro, sit down, stop.
Don't speak out in synagogue. You're embarrassing me.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure he probably got a lot of, hate as well just for being his brother.
Right.
So
that's a fair point.
Fairly annoyed as well. And then he is resurrected. I'm like, oh, fam, you were right.
My brother was right.
Wow. That's my brother.
Yeah, what's cool is that he went on to lead a church in Jerusalem too.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Holy city. Yeah.
We love it.
And then they all died martyrs.
Yeah.
They all ended up getting killed, which is sad, but
for a good cause.
For a good cause, the greatest cause of all. So James, this is probably one of my favorite books in the Bible.
Yep, it's good.
I love it.
Yeah, I already actually have a very serious note within the first sentence.
Yes, I had a feeling.
I have to flip to other scripture, guys. Ooh, I have it written down, but I do have to flip. So it says, the greeting, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm highlighting a servant, because I feel like some people get like really defensive of Christianity and stuff. They're like, oh, you're a slave, like you're a servant, like whatever. And it's like, well, first of all, praise be that like I can be a servant of our Lord of Lords. You know, a servant is translated to like, it can also mean a slave. But if you flip to Romans 6:17 and 18, it's actually really beautiful. It says, but thanks be to God that you who were once slaves of sin have become obedient from the heart to the standard of teaching to which you were committed, and having been set free from sin, have become slaves of righteousness. So it's actually like, thank goodness that we're slaves of righteousness, right? Like we're not slaves to our sin anymore. And just like talking about obedience and stuff, I think that a lot of just like what's been going on in our lives the last month that we've been off has had like such a weight in obedience. And I was just reading this last night and thinking like, wow, the way the Lord works, I tell you what, like just doing John last season, whatever. And like just seeing all the parallels that came from that, it got me amped because I was like, gosh, the Lord is working again. Like he made us, like you chose James, and I was like, sure, whatever. And just reading last night, just being like obedient, like just feeling the Lord just calling it to obedience. And I was just like, man, like that's my word for the year. Like that's been something that I've really just been sitting in and like really struggling with, because like it's hard, especially when you're like, you feel like you hear from the Lord, but then you question it and you're like, oh God, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't feel good. And he's like, nope, stay, do it, listen.
Yeah.
You know? And so I don't know. I just thought I was like really sick to open this up. Just kind of be slapped with that. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
Well, weird enough that you brought up slave, because genuinely after my trip to Costa Rica, I've had very in-depth conversations in my own head of what I'm a slave to on earth.
Yeah.
And I'm truly part of the rat race. What are you wearing? What are you driving? Next corporate job, next big paycheck. What does that look like? Oh, you're engaged. Let me see your ring. So much stuff. And in reality, all of that is earthly and doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yet I grind every day for that. And so it takes me a step back of, I'm not being a slave to the right thing. And what am I passionate about? What do I want to give to the earth? And that's literally my passion, is this. You know, my passion is things outside of that. Like, what can I give my friends in time of need? How can I help them? How can I spread the word while I'm on a trip? How, you know, things like that. And so I'm realizing a lot of things, even in my own home, I'm enslaved to. And I got to break those chains for what truly matters.
Yeah. I love that you bring that up, because I think that even just today, I was online looking for clothes because I'm going on a trip, and I was like, I've got to have a new wardrobe. Like I've got to fit what that trip is going to entail. And granted, I still bought some new clothes. However, I had my cart full to like $500 full. And I had to go through that and just be like, Audra, you might not have this jumpsuit, but you have a dress that's the same color and will do the same vibe. You're okay. Like you can wear that. And I was like, no, like it's not this though, you know? And it's not like as put together as this one feels. But for what? Like no one's going to know me there. No, like in the dress that I have to fill that void there is enough.
Right.
You know? But it's like we fall into this, like, even if you're not doing it every single day, there are moments where it's like, oh, well, now I've got to do this. I've got to go get my hair done. I've got to go get my nails done. And it's like, do you think anybody is going to lose sleep over the fact if I have a French tip or not? Like,
exactly.
No, not a single person, but we do it. And everyone. So, I mean, take heart in that, knowing like you're not the only one, you know? But
it's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, I realized that too, because before my trip to Costa Rica, I spent so much money on new rompers, tropical clothes, and I only wore one. I didn't need to spend all the money on all the other ones, but I wanted to because, I'm going on vacation. I have an excuse. I want to look good. And then the people there I was like, the clothes I bought didn't even match.
Yeah.
The people there were so laid back, wearing casual clothes. And I'm over here in an expensive romper from Anthropology. It's like, grow up. You didn't need that. You wasted your money. You could have went on another cool trip with that or whatever. And so sometimes I have to take a step back and realize it's correcting that bad behavior and what I'm becoming a slave to and the patterns I'm doing ever since reading this little book.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, don't want to be a slave to that anymore. Don't want to put my money there. And money can be a sin as well. What are you doing with it? Yeah. Oh, I just bought a bunch of fancy clothes for one trip to match the vibe. And it's like, well, waste. I could have tied my money with that.
Yeah. It is this like we chase things and like we want the validation, and we all have different like validations, like in the reasons why we are chasing the things. Like I think that is for me, like mine is validation. Like I feel worthy if I can step out in like a new outfit, a nice outfit.
But no, literally, like you were saying earlier, James somehow configures into our current life.
Yeah.
And it's really about being obedient to what God's telling us. And somehow I feel like without us purposely trying to choose things, they like align somehow with like our faith and endurance through life and like our trials. So it's so crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, you even just saying trials, like go into the next verses. Like it's all about that.
It really is. I love it too, because I overall for James get his message is going bad is good. In simplest terms, something that's bad is truly so good. And you are a faithful servant to be having that.
Yeah.
And even in verse 2, when he goes on to say, troubles of any kind come your way, consider it great joy.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, how could you consider this horrible thing great joy? And it's like, well, God knows you're a faithful servant. He's putting you in that. He knows it's going to help you grow. He knows it's going to make you more patient. He knows the man you're going to become after it.
Yeah.
So consider this joy that you get to experience this earthly emotion.
Yeah.
Someone once told me, isn't it amazing we get to experience so much pain and we get to cry about things because it means that we love something so much, or we experience something so raw that we could cry about it. And I thought about it and I was like, what a mind twist, because I hate crying. I didn't listen to my mom's episode because I hate crying.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to cry. I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to feel upset. So I avoid it. But in reality, it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Who is the actor who played Spider-Man? Andrew Garfield?
That sounds familiar.
I think it's Andrew Garfield, but I remember he was doing an interview. I can't remember who he was talking about, maybe his grandmother or maybe his mother, but someone passed and he was talking about like all the feelings that he feels. And he said, anytime I feel like crying about them, I will never suppress that, because all of those feelings is just all the love I didn't get to show them while they were here.
Wow.
And I thought that was so beautiful. And granted, I'm pretty sure I did not butcher that. He said it pretty similar to that. That really resonated with me. Like the tears that you're crying, I mean, of course they're painful and you're sad. You're crying because you love that person. Yeah. You loved that experience. You loved the memories that you're saying goodbye to. I mean, you're not saying goodbye to memories, but the person that you created those things with. And that can go for anything, like a death, a breakup, like a friendship loss. You feel those things because yes, you can be mad and you can be angry, but you loved that person. Yeah. And that's why you feel this. Yeah. And that's at some degree really beautiful, you know? And that means like you can feel that again, you know, depending on like what narrative we're talking about in that.
I once had a breakup and I was crying hysterically, and I'll never forget my dad came over and he goes, I had no idea you loved him so much. Or something like that. And it made me realize too, like, yeah, I guess I did, because I'm so sad and it was so much grief. But man, it was so much joy in my life at one point, you know? And so it's like the adverse reaction of love, right? You know, it's like the underbelly of the number one fruit of the spirit in a way. It's like the opposite. But it's like you, in order to feel that way, at one point you almost had to feel that joy and love and amazingness, you know?
Right.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
If you unravel it.
No, for sure.
In that way. And then going on to verse 3, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. And I squared the word when, because it's almost guaranteed that everyone will experience their faith being tested. It's just a matter of when. Every single person's going through something, whether it's a huge trial in life, whether it's minor. It's just a matter of when you have to face that. And I think that's really important, is unfortunately, it's kind of something that's guaranteed. Yeah. You know, you're going to have a trial in life, and it's just, are you going to have endurance through that? Are you going to go to God for that? How are you going to react in that? Because it's going to happen.
Right. I mean, I think that can speak to comparison as well, because we'll all have trials. We're all walking different paths, right? And so then, I mean, I just speak from like kind of my own perspective, I guess, and trying to navigate that. Somebody with millions of dollars, right? They could have a private jet, but that private jet breaks down and like that's their trial. Like who knows, you know, like,
right.
But for someone like me, I'm like, oh, that's your trial, like your private jet. Like, wow, I don't even have like a boat or whatever. Like I just have like this dinky car. But I think that all of that to say, it speaks to comparison and truly just truly having love for other people that God has created, and like not comparing your situation to theirs, because regardless of if you feel like that struggle for someone else is a struggle at all, that's not my job to deem that, you know? If that's the worst thing you went through, that your private jet broke down, I need to care about that for you. Or maybe it's not my place. I only get irritated because that will never be my narrative. If that's your narrative, then praise God that you get to say, the worst thing that's happened to me is my private jet broke down. I mean, I think we talked about this when we were going through John a little bit too, but just how when like I have something going on in my life, but then I know people that have worse, but you know, and not to compare, because like what's going on in my life matters to me, right? And it hurts. But it is such a nice reflection to say like, oh my gosh, it could be worse.
100%.
Like, wow.
Because to someone else, your jinky car breaks down and you're like, man, worst day ever.
Right.
My car broke down, but to someone else, they're like, man, she drives a car.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. Right. Or, man, she even lives in America. Man, she lives in an apartment.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so to someone else, you're that person's private jet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a good point about rich people too, because even diving down, it kind of talks about in James, it says, and those who are rich should boast, this is verse 10, that God has humbled them. They will fade away like a little flower in the field. The hot sun rises and the grass withers. The little flower droops and falls, and its beauty fades away. In the same way, the rich will fade away with all their achievements. And so it's truly to say, again, what are you kind of chasing? What are you a slave to? For that private jet, for that car? Because at the end of the day, all go to the same place or different places, maybe. You know what I mean?
You can't take it with you.
Can't take that with you.
Yeah.
Salvation is the key to life.
Right.
I mean, you got to live for that.
Yeah.
You got to live like your life depends on it. You can't live like your life depends on buying a Gucci handbag or buying a private jet or buying new outfits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's so important sometimes, and I'm working on that too. I'm not nowhere near buying a private jet, but okay, it's the little things. I'm already trying to buy nice clothes that I probably can't afford. We're here for such a blip of time.
Yeah.
And what are you doing also with your money and your time? And because all of this goes away. Even as an athlete, I played soccer. I have all these trophies. Guess what? Goes away. They're tucked away in my parents' closet.
And I mean, I don't think it's to say like you can't have the Gucci bag, you know?
Right.
But I think it's all about like your heart posture in that purchase, right? Hey, God, thank you so much for blessing my finances to the point to where like I've given back to you this month. I've helped a friend in need. I've paid my bills. I've gotten myself in a place where like this will not hurt me. So now I can buy something that I've worked very hard for, you know? And like, I think it truly just gratitude in your finances, you know? And I think that that's the big thing that's missed now in our 1%, you know, is that they're not doing it to glorify God. They're not doing it with a grateful heart. They're doing it because, hey, I get to post that I'm doing this, you know, hey,
so
like,
true.
look at me. Like this is boost their brand so they get more income, but yet they're not giving back to the lesser than, you know, it's all these things. And granted, we as people not in that industry don't exactly know what these people are doing with their finances, right? There can be amazing people in this world that have billions of dollars that are giving back. I think that that's to show too, like God is blessing them, right? Like if they do have millions of dollars and they're giving to the homeless, they're giving to less fortunate, the Lord will then, I believe, turn around and bless them more, you know, and that's amazing because they're doing well with it.
Right.
But there is still a ruler of this world in a lesser than form, and he is powerful here, you know, and so he will also build up his kingdom as much as he can too, and to get those people to have the finances that they do to do worse with it. Of course that's going to happen, you know, like we do live in a fallen world. There is evil here, and like that is what happens. But I think because, you know, like I don't want to like say this stuff and then one day like me be able to afford a Gucci bag and be like, all right guys,
well,
I bought it.
Well, no, 100% to that point. The amount of handbags I have that I bought, you know, like they're not Gucci. But if I would have added them all together, I probably could have bought a Gucci handbag by now. You know what I mean? So it's truly like, you're so right. It's not about necessarily like the big ticket items. It's just how it's good and bad. Are you doing it because you're like, man, I got this. I worked really hard. I'm going to buy it for myself. Or are you doing it for the vanity?
Right.
Are you doing it for the bad? Yeah, you're exactly right. What are you doing it for in that? Are you buying the private jet to, I don't know,
your ego, your own ego,
your own ego, and to fly yourself around? Or are you going to help people out and fly your friends around or your family members who got you there? And how are you going to go about it, I guess? And like to everything, there's almost like flipping a coin. Are you going to use it for good or are you going to use it for bad? Are you buying that purchase because you're doing it for your vanity and you want to look like you're a hotshot, or are you doing that because it's always been something you really wanted? You wanted something nice for yourself and you don't need to post about it, or you don't need everyone to see like, oh man, Dominique's walking around in her Gucci bag again, you know?
Right.
Hey guys, look at my new bag. I'm showing, you know, things like that. So to that point, it is so true. Like you nailed it on the head.
Are you buying them because you want to fill whatever desire of your own, like your own idol, you know? Or are you buying it because it's a great quality bag and like it goes with everything and that's the bag you wanted?
You know what I've like realized too is that the truly humbled rich people, you don't know are rich based on what they wear and they act, because they don't buy those
like
things.
Adam Sandler.
Like Adam Sandler. Oh my gosh, I love Adam.
Me. Adam, hey.
Hi Adam, if you're hearing this. My name's Dominique and my friend Audra.
I want a pair of your shorts. Send them in.
Put me in one of your comedy movies, please. It's a dream of mine.
Why do you want that? I'm just kidding.
Because I think that would be so funny.
Yeah.
Throw me in there. His movies are the best.
Put me in, coach.
Put me in, coach, please. Like make Water Girls. Put me in, Audra. Oh man. But the humbled rich, you don't know. Yeah. And they're not about that, from what I can tell.
Yeah. I had coffee with a few of them last week. They're great. But you wouldn't know because they're so humble. They don't want to post with me because that would just get them too much clout.
So verse number 5 reminded me of you.
Oh.
It says, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. But when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. And then I'll just continue. It says, do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. James is so stern in saying, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God and he will give it to you, period. Wisdom, first of all, comes from the Bible. That's our definition for me, is wisdom. Is like, go to your Bible. What does it say? Okay, now that's probably what you should do. Whereas knowledge is more so just knowing things. Oh, you know things, it's fine. But like wisdom is how to act in situations. It's what is, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
No, you're doing it.
And then emotion is also very raw. It's not wisdom. It's very raw knowledge that you're receiving, but wisdom is really what's nurtured, what's being told to you from God, and he will give it to you if you ask for it. And I don't think in moments when you're like, hey, I need wisdom in this situation, he's going to be like, no, girl. But I'm guilty of that because I always act in my emotions. Yeah. I'm quick to be like, emotional. I'm going to say what's on my mind, where I'm not asking God in those moments, hey, I really need wisdom on this because I'm super emotional. Yeah. I should catch myself. But I think that's important. But it reminded me of you because last season you talked about how you wanted wisdom a lot.
Yeah, I still.
You're like, I want wisdom. I was like, Audra's just gotta ask.
It's like, well, so my version says, and I like squared this so much, but in verse 6 it says, but let him ask in faith with no doubting. And that's what I squared. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, like you said. But I thought that really stood out to me because, yes, like I often ask for wisdom, pray for wisdom. And because of my flesh are these doubts in my brain because I don't have it yet, that I'm like, oh, he's not going to give it to me. So it's like God is saying, like, I will give this to you, but you have to come to me with full faith, with no doubting. And I often too, and I think that this kind of goes to show like a little bit of like who I am as a person, is that like I can have full faith from anyone else but myself. Same. A lot of the time. Sometimes I can, but like a lot of time it's more so for others. I have one friend, my friend Zoe, who I've mentioned before, but just recently she called me about a situation. And I'm wordy and I talk a lot and I use a lot of metaphors and I don't mean to. It's just kind of how I understand things. But if you let me go enough, I'll hit a sweet spot. And she does. And so she was asking me for advice and I was kind of just rambling on about something. And then I finally hit that sweet spot. And she was like, oh my gosh, you're so wise. And it made me feel so good because it was like, in this moment, I truly was speaking from my heart, truly wanting what was best for her. And so that's where my words went. Through that, the Lord used it and gave me wisdom in that. And if I could just do that for myself, like I love her so much. Like I love you, like my friends, like all the things. And I can get to a place where I'll just be able to blurt stuff out and it makes so much sense. And be like, why didn't I think of that? And I'm like, wait, how did I not think of that for myself? And so it's like reflecting that onto me. And I am just as worthy as the love that I give to others. I need to give that to myself. And then there is where I will find the wisdom I'm seeking, right?
Absolutely.
When I start holding myself to a standard of God called me good and he loves me and I'm daughter. I'm worthy enough for the own wisdom that God can use in others. Because sometimes I'm like, I don't doubt with my friends.
Right.
But when it comes to me, I doubt.
I'm the same way. You come to me and you're like, Dom, what do I do?
Right.
I'm like, well, what does your gut say? What does God kind of do that? I'm like, then do it. Why are you questioning it? But it's because you're in it. And so I love the metaphor that James brings up, like you're like the sea. Because in a way, if you're doubting, you're kind of, the sea is a place where it could be chaos. It could be dangerous. There's
the North Sea.
Yeah, the North Sea.
That's
like
terrifying.
Waves crashing. There's uncertainty and it's based on outside factors.
Yeah.
It's based on the weather. It's based on clouds. It's based on all these outside things. And so you don't want to be like the sea. You can't be wavering back and forth. It's also very restless. It doesn't end. It's like an endless pit. Is the sea, truly. And you don't want to be in that because that's essentially hell.
Yeah.
So it's the one thing is go to God. And it's so hard because I'm right there with you is even though I know, okay, my gut, the Holy Spirit, God's directing me this way, my head and my logic is, that's not the logical thing to do right now, God. So I'm not going to listen and I'm going to be doubtful. And so that makes me no better than the sea. I'm just letting outside influences, earthly things determine what I should be doing. And it goes back to obedience. Just being obedient and you'll get reward. Like you don't have that intuitional feeling for no reason. You're not getting that gut instinct for no reason. You should probably do what your gut's telling you, even though it's scary and terrifying. Just take that jump, take the leap of faith.
Yep. I think we give too much credit to our opposer of he makes us uncomfortable. Yeah. But in reality, a lot of that does come from God. Like when it is time to move, God will nudge you. And sometimes we get so comfortable in our relationship, in our job, in our apartment, home, our environment that we stay. It's easier. It's comfortable. We know it. Yep. And God's like, well, I can't use you if you stay put, like if you're stalled. Right. I can't use you if you're fearful. I say that too because in my situation, I did hear stay. And it was not the answer that I thought I was going to get. I had people praying for me to move, essentially. And I think that was something that what God will surprise you. And that's how I really felt like in the pit of my stomach that it was from God, was because I was so ready to move. And he told me not to. And that's where I was like, whoa, no, you're not hearing me right, you know? And that's actually something that I've started kind of picking up on about myself. And when I'm praying and like when I feel like I'm getting something from the Lord, is that a lot of times he answers me and I will respond, no, Lord, you're not hearing me right. That's not what I'm praying about. And then in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, wow, I am exactly where he knew I was going to be. And he told me so, but I didn't see the big picture, but God sees the big picture. I see what's right in front of me. And I'm like, God, this is what I'm praying about. This is what it is. And he's like, go climb a mountain. And I'm like, I was asking you if I should have that second slice of cake, but you told me to climb a mountain. I'm confused, you know? And then like in hindsight, whatever. That's a very dumb analogy, but
no, that's good. Because what I thought about the other day, literally, I was talking to a friend and I was like, the only person that knows what's going to happen is God. So why don't we go to him more often? You don't know. My mom doesn't know. My dad doesn't know. No one knows. So why am I not going to God more often? Because he's going to guide me in the right spot.
Yeah.
He knows what the bigger picture looks like, and none of us do. Even we combine all our brains together, we have no clue. Right. So why am I not going to him with everything? Hey, guide me on this. Bring me to whatever master plan you have for me in my life.
Yeah. And I think it's so crazy because in the way that we question him too, when we get a word and we're like, what? It just goes to show how much better he knows.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, a dummy, you know, in the most polite way. I have no earthly idea and I think my way's best, right? And God's like, no, actually this. And I'm like, what are you talking about, God? No.
Right.
This way. He will inevitably let me go the way I want if I choose, you know? But he's like, dang it, I had the marker right here. But you chose to take 7 exits in order to get, like, I'm still going to get you to this point. But all these exits are in the way. And like, you can take them or you can just go the route that I'm telling you, you know? We're like, detour,
right.
the scenic route.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's truly crazy. I'm like, man, he's the only one who knows my path and what beginning to end looks like.
Yeah.
So I need to go to him in prayer.
But then also, we're so fearful of our future. God knows it and God loves us and he won't let anything happen to us. But we sit every single day and I'm like, what if I'm behind? Like I constantly am like, I'm falling behind. Like I'm, you know, I'm here in this stage of my life and I don't have X, Y, and Z and I'm behind. God's like, you're literally exactly where I planned for you to be. I knew you were going to be here. Nothing is different from what this moment looks like. But I'm like, no, God, everybody has these things and I don't. And look at me. And he's like, you're fine.
Well, yeah, like if it was up to me and my control, I'd be married with a house right now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like I would have had 2 kids by now in my mind.
Right.
10 years ago, I totally thought I'd be, you know, but things don't happen that way.
Right.
And it's truly the way it was supposed to be. Everything was literally the way it was supposed to be. And now here I am. I'm like, it's truly everything's out of my control anyways.
Yeah. I
can think one thing and then it turns out the complete opposite.
Right.
So
I'm not all knowing. Wow, joke's on me.
Joke's on you, Audra. No, I'm kidding. I like how it also says too in verse 7, such people should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. And this brings up expectations. And this is expectations of God. God, I tithed. I was faithful. I was obedient. Why don't I have my mansion? Why don't I have my private jet? It's truly, I feel like expectation is bad almost.
100%.
I feel like, you know, granted, it's nice to make goals and whatever. And I truly am a believer in that. But to an extent, having an expectation of someone, especially God, I feel like is such a bad thing because once you start setting those expectations, it's never going to be what you imagine. And so you just have to realize in life, nothing's guaranteed. I'm not special. Okay. I shouldn't be getting anything from anyone, you know, nothing. Like, who am I to ask for things or do something to want something in return, you know?
Yeah.
As soon as you put expectations up, I feel like it almost causes, it almost causes more destruction and chaos.
Yeah. I mean, I argue all the time, so everybody says comparison is the thief of joy, but I argue that expectation is the thief of joy because I think that comparison stems from our expectation. I compare, and I always use like physical stuff for me because like that's my biggest insecurity, but like I look at other people and I compare myself to them, right? I wish I was as thin as her. My expectation, how I've grown up, has always been I will be that thin. So because I'm not, now I'm comparing. Because if I was, I wouldn't compare. But my expectation is set that is that. Same thing with being single. I compare a lot of that. I meet a 25-year-old and she's married. I compare. I'm like, what the heck did I do wrong? But it's because my expectation was that married. I would be married. Exactly. And now I'm not. So now I'm comparing.
Right.
So when I do start comparing a lot, and I actually used to, I might have said this last season, but we have this river that runs through our city, but we call it Town Lake, and like there's a trail. And I would purposefully, when I was really trying to hone in on just like my sin, honestly, and like who I am as a person to my core, I would go on these walks by myself. I would walk this Town Lake and I would allow my brain to think negative thoughts about people when they pass. Like, okay, like she thinks she's hot, or oh, he thinks he's like so cool, or whatever. And I let my brain think it. And then I said, I would like kind of break it down. Like, okay, Audra, why? Why do you think that right now? What is it in you that is broken that you can look at someone else and judge them for something? You know, like if someone had Lululemon, like I have Amazon on, they have Lululemon. It's like, okay, cool. But like, because I have an expectation that at this age in this city where I'm at, I would be able to be living in a high rise downtown, and I would have a whole closet full of Lululemon and not even bat an eye. But I don't have that, you know? And so now I'm comparing. And it's like at the end of the day, then it kind of helped me break down, like, what are my idols? Like, I'm idolizing a brand. I'm idolizing an image. I'm idolizing a human standard. But what's God's standard for me? God doesn't give a crap if I have Amazon on, you know? Like what he cares about right now is that I'm doing the work to correct my heart posture, that I'm out here. All right, God, you and me, let's go through this and like figure out what are my issues. And hey, God, I'm going to give these to you and you fix them.
Yeah. And it literally goes back to verse 1. Like, what is your mind enslaved to?
Yeah.
The comparison, the Lululemon, the designer things of the world. You know what I mean? It's weird because it all kind of coincides with each other.
Right. And it all actually breaks down to ego.
Yeah.
I feel I deserve that.
Yeah.
Because of my ego. I have an ego. We all do. And like the more I talk to people, I'm like, that's ego. I see you, you know?
What really bad for me recently, especially as a Christian, is, man, I've been so faithful, you know, why don't I get that like that person? That person got that, God. You blessed them with that. Why don't I get that? Am I not worthy? And it goes back, I shouldn't expect anything.
Yeah. And that's also like kind of I don't know if manipulation is the right word. Am I not worthy, God?
Yeah, like, you're like manipulating God.
Yeah,
you're
he's like, chill out. Yeah.
Really? I didn't do all of this for you, God, and you're going to give so-and-so a Mercedes?
But then it's truly checking yourself and looking around and being like, I live in a city, a very booming city, a very expensive. It's gotten so expensive. And I'm living by myself. I am paying my bills. I am working, you know, like I have a great job, have great community. We're doing this. There's so much good. And I know that so everyone says that and like, look at the good, you know. God does do that too, though, because he's like, why are you sitting over here comparing yourself to what I've given them? You don't know their walk. You don't know what they've done or not done. And you don't know what I'm doing with this gift or test. It could be a test. God could be testing people with these amazing things to see like, okay, I'm going to give this to you and let's see if you still keep your eye on me when you have it.
Right.
All right, Lord, I see you giving them a Mercedes. All right, Lord, I'm going to keep driving my Honda Civic.
In that, you saying that to God too, your heart's not in the right place. And he knows that. He knew you were going to say that. So he's like, I'm teaching you a lesson here. And it literally goes to faith and endurance. I did bless him with that. But are you going to keep worshiping me? Are you going to keep praying?
Right.
What's your faith like? What's your endurance with this? Because maybe I will, you know, like you just don't know. And literally in verse 8, it says, their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything they do. How can you go to someone who expects everything from God? That's not the right mindset. They're unstable. They want the earthly things.
Yeah. My version says he is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. And double-minded is of two souls, one who is of earth and one from heaven.
Where's your soul going to be?
Yeah.
Is it going to be set on your salvation and other people's, or is it going to be set on, man, God, I wanted that Mercedes. I've been so faithful to you. That's the question.
Yeah.
I love it too. It even like keeps going and it says, believers who are poor. Now this is believers. These are Christians, right? Who are poor, have something to boast about, for God has honored them. And I just think, wow, what a mind shift, because it goes back to being like, I'm poor, but I'm a believer, God. I'm a Christian. Why don't I have a house like this person? Why don't I have a car like this person? But God's honoring you.
Yeah.
Because you don't have those things. You don't need those things.
Well, and they're all distractions.
Yeah.
And they don't have them. Like, and also too, let's also point out that poor, in quotations, is a man-made word. And what we have defined it as is also man-made. So therefore, like, I can look at somebody living on the street and be like, oh, they're so poor, like, poor them, you know?
Right.
They could literally be the most joyful human being. So, like, honestly, sometimes I'd be driving by the homeless and I'm like, I envy y'all because you're off the grid. The government's not messing with you. You don't pay taxes. Like,
Right.
you are just free. Like,
Right.
truly to the core, free.
Yeah.
And
They're not in the rat race.
they're not. And granted, a lot of them I understand have, you know, the mental issues and, you know, alcohol and drug addictions and things like that. But I do believe that there are people that are completely off the grid that are truly following the Lord or find him there. And I think that they might remain there. I think all the time, like, how do I quit my job and just spend time with God all day?
Well,
like, how does that happen?
To that point, I met a couple. We were taking a ferry across Costa Rica and they had a traveling van. And I was talking about the van. I was like, oh, wow, I could never live in that. It's tiny, whatever. And the couple was right next to me. So I was like, oh my gosh, you know, put my foot in my mouth and they're like, oh, that's mine. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I was like, you know, how's it with space? Do you feel like a little tight, you know? But anyways, long story short, they were only supposed to go for like a year. And they said, we really have gone 3 years now. And I was like, well, why is that? And they're like, God just provided. Random guy in a town gave me 30 mangoes. That's 30 breakfasts. This person in this town welcomed me in and brought us in for a dinner. That's money saved. So sometimes I think we overthink things and overcomplicate things because Matthew 6:26, one of my favorite verses, like the birds of the sky, I always feed them. But where does that come from? Like if I feed them and take care of them and provide shelter for them, like imagine what I do for you.
Yeah.
And I felt like they were such a living example of that because they, according to their money and their budgets and their rat race things, they only had a year. But then God was like, hey, here's 2 more. Because I blessed you with these people along your travels that gave you dinners at their home, that gave you breakfast. And so sometimes I think of that and I'm like, man, you really could do that. And I truly believe in that. Even me, diabetes and all, I'm always like, oh, I need insulin. I can't just run away. I can't be free. But in reality, I think I would truly figure out a way.
Yeah.
And I don't think I wouldn't, you know, I think there would be like really cool, magical things like that along the journey, as long as we had faith to go do it. Even when your faith is being tested in endurance, like, hey, we're running out of money. That same hour, the man's giving away his 30 mangoes in his backyard, you know? And that's truly what they were talking about. And I thought, that's God at work.
Yeah.
He wants you to see more of the world or continue your travels online or whatever it may be. I just think when you truly just take a leap of faith, like they both quit their jobs to do this and something they enjoy and they're passionate about, beautiful things follow.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times our mindset, we're enslaved to the thought in the mind of like, oh, I can't just be free. I can't just go travel. I can't just go do that. But in reality, you can.
Yeah.
You totally can.
You know, just parts of my testimony and things like that, like forgiveness even, you know? So if I say I forgave somebody that I've been, you know, I don't hold like resentment towards or anything, but definitely there needs to be some forgiveness had in my heart. What if I let go of that and then the story that I've been telling everybody exists no more? And then who am I without that? Like,
like your testimony?
Yeah, but like, not even that, but just like parts of it. I've become so in my own brain, like I am known for the girl that I am this. Oh, wow, that happened to her, you know? And like sometimes it opens doors like with relationship for me because I can say, oh my gosh, I went through this and people can relate then. And it's great. What happens if I just make peace with what I've gone through and that's not my story anymore? Like it can be part of it, but that's not what I talk about to people first off. Instead of that, I talk about like,
it's the intention of your story.
Yeah.
Are you telling it to other people because you want something in return? Or are you telling people to inspire them? Are you using your story for good or bad?
Yeah, that's good.
Because I mean, I pull a lot of cards out of my story. I'm like, I want you to feel bad for me now. And I want to upgrade on my hotel room, you know? Like, so it truly depends what way you flip it. Anyone can make peace with their story, but then bring it up for good or bring it up for whatever. But if I'm like, you better feel bad for me because of X, Y, and Z. And sometimes I do. Sometimes I say it because I want you to feel bad for me. Then it's bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Okay. That's a good point. Yes. Because there are definitely, I tell my story when oh, don't worry. Like I've been there too. I can like, I can relate and like not in the way of like a one up. Truly, I love to relate to people.
Yeah.
And my story's wild enough that I can relate to many. But yeah, that's a good point because there are definitely times, and I feel those convictions when I'm talking about my story in certain situations, and it's like for my own personal gain, I feel that like ickiness.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I not, this is my story. Like, why do I feel weird about this? But it's like, oh no, you're not using it right.
Right. Right.
Good point.
Sometimes I pull some cards and I want to feel that pity, so I'll say things and then I'm like, ooh, doesn't feel as good when I got it, you know?
Yeah, like I'm dirty.
I'm dirty now. Oh man. But to that point too, like talking about temptation and stuff, which I was like, wow, we're actually going in the perfect direction, is verse 13. It says, and remember, when you are being tempted, do not say, God is tempting me. God is never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. Da-da. Like temptation of, oh, I want this person to feel pity. Temptation of buying something I know I shouldn't buy. Temptation on going on another trip I don't need to go on.
Yep. I think about that all the time. Little small things. And I'm like, I probably shouldn't do this. But like, it's just small. But then later, you know how many times I have had like $2 in my bank account and been like, why did I buy that coffee the other day? You know, it's just like, it's not, buying the coffee wasn't the sin. And like, please hear us in that. Like, buy all the coffees you want, you know?
Right.
One of God's things is truly be smart with your finances. They don't belong to us. They're his. At the end of everything that we receive is from him. And so if I've dwindled down my paycheck to $2 and it's because I was out at dinners because I wanted the Instagram picture and I was buying the Starbucks coffee because it's cool. Like, it's just the feeling.
Yeah.
For me, sometimes, like, it's just truly, I don't even post my Starbucks. It's just the feeling of having it sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I just want the nicer coffee, okay?
Right. Go around with your hot latte on a fall day.
Yes. It's the vibe. You know, like, if we're losing our finances for the vibes, then you've been tempted. You've been warned. I just think about that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
God doesn't tempt us. God tests us.
Yeah.
But it's from a love and righteousness that he tests us. And it's for our own good. We can say, God, I love you so much. And like, I'll do anything you ask. And then he tests us and like we fall short. And he's like, no, you wouldn't actually. Yeah. And that's not him saying like, I'm going to withhold this or anything. It's just him saying, this should convict you right now. Like, if you're feeling this conviction, that's from me. Let's do better, you know? Still love you.
And I used to think too, like, I actually used to blame God. I'd be like, God's tempting me or God's testing me. And in reality, it's more so, okay, not the case.
Yeah.
There's, you know, you got the enemy, you got Satan right there in your corner who's like, yeah, go get that Starbucks. I know you want it for the vibes.
Yeah.
Go do that, even though you can't, you know, you have $2 in your account. Go buy a $7 latte. It's crazy.
Right.
It's crazy. Don't be misled.
Yeah. Well, to finish off, I just think that verse 18 is really great. My version says, I'll just read the whole like 16 through 18, but do not be deceived, my beloved brothers. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change, which is like also so important to note. God is the same always. There's no variation, no shadow, nothing. And then 18, of his own will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. And so I have, of his own will, he brought us forth. God chose us. We are of his will. He made a choice to create us, and that's such beauty on its own. But then bring us forth by the word of truth. Truth to me means purpose. I'm somebody that's always like, what's my purpose? You know, like I'm trying to find that all the time. And God chose to create me out of his word of truth on purpose. And I just always try to find moments like that where it's like, I have to do nothing. I am on purpose. And therefore I have it just by existing. That is such a beautiful reminder. Going further down, of his first fruits, the first produce of a season. So like first fruits are the first produce. We're his creation. We're blooming all the time. We are coming into our own, and like, wow. And just like to truly find the Lord and like walk in this truth, and then to help create new believers and watch them become like the new season's first fruit. So crazy. Like, go on, little duckling.
Right.
Yeah, I've done my job, you know, like
Right.
wild. And like all of it is on purpose. And like we get to, like, we get to help God, you know, and like God knows, he's all knowing, he's doing it all. This beauty in it that he's allowing us to help in whatever way, you know, even if we're not doing anything at all. You know, when we go out and talk about God, like we don't have to.
Right.
God can get that person on his own. He does not need our help, you know, but like the beauty that we can love him so much and want others to love and like speed up the process maybe. Like who knows?
And let him use you as a vessel for good to move forward in good in someone's life. Could be a complete stranger and you planted the littlest seed that meant insane to them.
Yes.
You know, little words can go so far. Like there's things that have been told to me that I know people thought it was nothing.
Yeah.
But it meant a lot. And I love how you brought up he never changes or casts a shifting shadow, because the God in the Old Testament is the same God in the New.
Heck
and
yeah.
he's the same God right now. As much as people want to say, oh, well, you know, it's kind of like the old God in the Old Testament, or like that's how he used to be. He changed. It's like, no, he's still there.
Yep.
And he is the same God. He's never changing. And I thought it was interesting too how they used shifting shadow. Because it's like the creepy, like lurking little shadows in the night. You know, they're always changing faces. He's the same righteous God and he always will be.
Yeah.
And we are his prized possession.
Yeah. Yeah. Even when you were saying like the shadow and stuff, like it makes me think, because shadows don't stay still.
Right.
They're
always moving.
Yeah. They're always moving. Like
even your own.
Yeah.
Like the sea. You're unwavering.
Yeah,
you're
my
always
shadow
moving.
She's not a ride or die. She's gone.
You know what I love about shadow too is it's like the light.
Then I'm like,
shadow.
wait.
I don't know.
But like wherever the light hits, like the shadow repels it. If that makes sense.
Oh.
Because like if you move the lamp to the shadow's always going to be on like the opposite side.
Yeah,
like the light will never catch the shadow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So.
The shadow always has darkness.
I think we're reaching it.
No, there's not. There's never been a shadow that has light. Right? There's like I don't know. I'm thinking
maybe a donut. If you held a donut up and then it's a circle, there's just a line in the center.
There's always light, even in the darkness.
There's always light.
Well, on that note, Audra, you want to pray us out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm nervous.
I put you on the spot.
I know. Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing Dom and I back together for season 2. We are so excited to see what you have for us. And God, we just pray for our continued obedience, for you to just continue to show up in all of this, make things align in your perfect image and your perfect way. Yeah. And Lord, we just also pray for that we just rebuke our comparisons and these expectations that we have allowed the worldly experience to set on our lives. We know that through you, all things are possible, and we are walking the walk that you have beautifully designed for us. And just God, we just pray that you continue to remind us of that, and that we are not behind. We are right on time in your perfect timing with you always. So in your name, amen.
Amen.